But first, in speaking of the justice system, of strange calls by judges, and about the voice. This is Dennis Fisher. He's a Victorian man, he's aged 66, is still a year short of claiming the pension. But Fisher, as a broadcaster, identifies as Aboriginal and reckons that should change everything.
And I feel, my ancestors are crying because they want justice.
Dennis Fisher has gone to our federal court to force the Commonwealth Government to give the pension to Aborigines 3 years earlier than it's given to everyone else, when Aborigines turn 64 instead of 67. And the reason, he says, is that Aborigines tend to die earlier than the rest of us. Life expectancy at birth for Aboriginal men, for instance, is 8.5 years less. And that means, according to him, they get less time to enjoy life on the pension. And that, Dennis Fisher says, is racist. It's racial discrimination, and that must be unlawful. Now, the good part about what the federal court, 5 judges of that court have just ruled, well, is that no, we are not going to have a welfare system where one race gets the pension at 64 and everyone else 3 years later. We must treat people with equal dignity and respect, the court said. Bravo. But the bad thing these judges did was still accept Fisher's wider argument, and indeed the argument of the Commonwealth in this case, the Albanese government. And that argument is that if Aboriginal men or women die earlier than they should, it is not because, say, they smoked or drank or ate unhealthily or whatever. Nope. It's the fault of our rotten, colonialist, racist, white society. Or as the court put it, the facts agreed by both Fisher and our Commonwealth Government don't suggest that these disparities on health arise from something inherent in Aboriginal Indigenous people or their cultures that make them inherently likely to live shorter lives than other people. Rather, to the extent that underlying causes are identified, those causes are connected to the ongoing effects of colonisation, dispossession, destruction of cultural bonds, poor access to services, and racist policies. Now, this to me is nuts, blaming society and history, etc., for individual behaviour. And this is also the falsehood, in my opinion, a very damaging falsehood that is pushed now by Indigenous Australians Minister Linda Burney, when she says why we need the voice, why we need this kind of Aboriginal Parliament in our Constitution.
It is not okay that my life expectancy is 8 years shorter than the deputy. It's not okay.
That is such a nonsense argument for the voice. It's a total guilt trip, but it is nonsense. Now, I would suggest that Linda Burney's life expectancy is not likely to be shorter than that of any other Australian woman, not when she's, for one, earning so well, unless she smokes or drinks or takes drugs and the rest. I'm sure she doesn't, but if she does, it's on her. It's not on you or me or society or anyone else but her. Because let me show you something that just demonstrates how idiotic that statement, in my opinion, from the federal court is. You know, that yes, it's this racist colonialist society that's to blame for Aborigines dying earlier. Let me take just one example. Smoking. Now that will kill you, right? I mean, it's going to ruin your health. It says it right on the packet. Now, the thing is here that nearly half of all Aboriginal adults still smoke. That's a rate 3 times more than for the rest of us. Even many pregnant women smoke, with the effects that has on babies. And the Victorian Cancer Council says smoking causes 37% of all deaths of Aborigines and 50% of those aged 45 and older. So can you be surprised then? And one last thing, to put the final nail in this disastrous game of treating all Aborigines, even Linda Burney, as victims of a colonialism that's killing them early, you know, poor Linda. There is one other huge difference in life expectancy that's very important. Aborigines who live out bush, remote areas, tend to die 6 years earlier than the ones who've moved to the cities, where there are hospitals, yes, but where they're also more likely to find work, be active and integrate. So much for, cultural, Aboriginal culture not having an effect on these outcomes, as the Federal Court seems to suggest. And, this idea that, it's all colonialism, the evidence suggests that Aborigines before white people arrived here died even younger than they do now out bush, even younger. So maybe this colonial society is not killing Aborigines. It could actually save them. But the voice, I don't think it will.